As Trump surges in the latest polling released after the presidential debate, today we're going to be taking a look at the 2024 electoral map based on the single newest poll conducted from all 50 states. And we're going to do this a little bit differently. We're going to fill in the map based on poll closing order so you can see how the map will actually fill in on election night. In case you didn't know, voting doesn't end in every single state at the same time. Voting will end first on many East Coast states, and then slowly the map will fill in from east to west. So we'll begin with the 6 states where voting will end at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. This is our first poll closing, and these states will be the first ones to fill in on November 5th. We're going to begin in Georgia. This is one of the most competitive states in the entire election. In fact, the Peach State was the closest state in the 2020 election. Joe Biden won it by less than 1/4 percentage point. This was the only time Democrats have won Georgia since Bill Clinton back in 1992, and it's very unlikely that Kamala Harris is going to perform just as well or better than the incumbent president. In 2016, Trump won the state by over 5 points. Georgia is still fundamentally Republican, and he is on track to winning it back this November. The former president leads by 3% in the most recent Quinnipiac University poll. This is a pretty good margin for Donald Trump, who was expected to lose based on polling in 2020 by a pretty wide margin. The fact that he's even ahead here really says a lot about just how much better he is performing in this election compared to the last. The Peach State is going to be the first state we fill in, and it will be lean Republican. Moving on to Virginia, this is the other competitive state in yellow. The Commonwealth of Virginia went to Joe Biden by double digits in the last election. In 2020, the state really wasn't all that close. But over the last 4 years, Virginia has taken a sizable shift to the right. Just 1 year after Biden was elected, the state elected a Republican governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general. Today, Kamala Harris leads by just 5.3% in the polling average. One poll released last month had her leading by just 3 points. If Kamala Harris can't win Virginia by more than 5, she is basically guaranteed to lose the election. Even Hillary Clinton won the state by 5 points 8 years ago. And so Virginia is going to be lean blue, a lot more competitive than it really should be. Now, the 4 remaining states are pretty easily going to go to one candidate or the other. Trump is going to win Indiana, Kentucky, and South Carolina by a solid margin for a 3rd time in a row, while Kamala Harris will carry Vermont, the most liberal state in the country. Next up at 7:30 p.m., voting will end in Ohio, West Virginia, and North Carolina. North Carolina being by far the most crucial state out of all 7 of the battleground states, which includes Georgia, North Carolina, as well as Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Nevada, and Arizona. Out of all 7 of these states, North Carolina is the only one that went to Donald Trump in both of the last 2 elections, and so it really is a state that he must win. Luckily for him, according to the polling average in the Tar Heel state, he leads by 0.4%. According to the most recent poll conducted here, this is a poll conducted after the presidential debate. The debate was on September 10th. The survey period for this was from the 11th to the 13th, and Trump leads by a whopping 3-point margin. North Carolina isn't even going to be tilt like it was in 2020. It is going to be a lean red state. The Tar Heel state has only gone blue once since 1976, and that was when Barack Obama won it by 1/3 percentage point in 2008. Kamala Harris is not going to be the second Democrat to carry North Carolina in the last 50 years. While Ohio, Donald Trump is doing very well there as well. The former president leads by 10% in the most recent Emerson College and the Hill poll, 10 percentage points, double digits for Trump, in a state that voted for Barack Obama just 12 years ago. Ohio is now very much in the Republican column. It is a GOP state, and it will likely be red on our map, while West Virginia tends to be the 2nd most Republican state in the country. It is going to be solid red, only Wyoming is further to the right. 30 minutes later, at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, we have the largest poll closing of the night. The combined electoral count here is 171. This makes up for nearly 1/3 of the entire Electoral College. So we're going to begin by filling in the solid states for both candidates here. A lot of these states are going to be decided by margins of 15 percentage points or more. For example, Donald Trump is easily going to win in states like Oklahoma, Missouri, Tennessee, Mississippi, and Alabama, while Kamala Harris has a clear advantage in Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Maryland, and the District of Columbia. Illinois, New Jersey, and Delaware are going to be slightly more competitive, with the state of Maine as a whole being a lean blue state, the 1st district being solid blue, and the 2nd district solid red. Moving on now to the 3 remaining states one of which is potentially the most important state in the entire country, Pennsylvania. Trump is unbeatable. He's already favored to win in North Carolina and Georgia, and if he wins every other non-competitive Republican state, as long as he wins in Pennsylvania, he is going to get past 270 electoral votes. Kamala Harris can win Wisconsin, Michigan, Nevada, and Arizona. It won't matter at that point. If Pennsylvania goes red, the election will go to Trump. Right now, Pennsylvania is among the most competitive states in the entire country. Kamala Harris leads by 0.1% in the polling average, but this is mainly because of outlier polls that have heavily favored her over the last 2 months. But Trump is taking back this polling average. In fact, he leads in the latest poll from the Trafalgar Group. The CBS poll is a tie, so we're going to refer to the second most recent poll, and the Trafalgar Group has Trump leading by 2 percentage points. So the Keystone State is going to be tilt red on our map, and that is going to be enough for him to win the presidency if everything else goes as it should. This is not at all impossible. Trump won Pennsylvania back in 2016 by nearly 1 percentage point. This is a state he's won before, and currently, he is on track to win it again. Moving on to New Hampshire, this is a state that was very competitive when Hillary Clinton won it by 0.37% in 2016. Donald Trump almost won the Granite State. In fact, only one state was more competitive than New Hampshire in 2016, and that was Michigan. Hillary Clinton lost Wisconsin and Pennsylvania by larger margins than she won in New Hampshire. Now, Joe Biden did well in 2020, but today, New Hampshire could get competitive once again. Kamala Harris leads by 5.7% in the polling. Joe Biden led by a double-digit margin, and he eventually won it by just over 7. If Kamala Harris leads by 5, her margin of victory here is going to be very, very narrow, especially considering the former president's success here in the past. New Hampshire is going to be a lean blue state, but it's definitely going to be one to watch. Just like Virginia, it has the potential of flipping red. Finally, in the Sunshine State of Florida with 30 electoral votes, this used to be the ultimate battleground state, but that is no longer the case. It's been hugely beneficial to the Republican Party, as they no longer have to fight for Florida. This is just a state that they basically know they are going to win. In 2016, Donald Trump barely won Florida. In 2012, it was the closest state in the entire country, the only state decided by a margin of 2 points or less. In 2020, everybody thought Joe Biden was at least going to do better than Hillary Clinton, but instead, Trump won by 3 times the margin he won against Biden than he won by against Clinton. Looking at polling today, there's no doubt that Trump is going to win the state for a 3rd time in a row. The Hill and Emerson College have him ahead by 5 points. Florida is going to be lean red, but in the end, he can definitely win by upwards of 7 to 10 percentage points. This is a state that is not going to go blue for a very long time. At 8:30 p.m., voting will end in Arkansas, and of course, that is going to be a safe state for the former president. 30 minutes later, at 9 p.m., another 157 electoral votes will be up for grabs, and just like before, many of these states are easily going to go to Donald Trump. Both of the Dakotas, all of Nebraska except the 2nd district, which is lean blue. Trump is also going to carry Wyoming, Kansas, and Louisiana. The only state I can give outright right now to Kamala Harris is Colorado, which is going to be likely blue, not even a 15-point margin. Joe Biden won it by 14 points. Kamala Harris will probably win it by just over half. Up in Minnesota, this is the home state of Tim Walz, Kamala Harris's running mate. Walz is the incoming governor of the state, and he is relatively popular in Minnesota. He's definitely given Harris a boost here. The vice president leads by just over 5 points in the polling, but honestly, this is not good because before Kamala Harris chose Tim Walz, and before she became the Democratic nominee, when it was still Joe Biden, the race was probably going to be a loss for the Democrats. Kamala Harris has improved upon Biden's numbers from 3 months ago, but she is still doing worse than Joe Biden did in 2020. Joe Biden did not run with the literal state's governor as his running mate. Kamala Harris, with Walz on the ticket for over a month, leads by just 5 percentage points, so this is pretty abysmal for the Democrats. Yes, Harris is still the favorite to win, but a state that hasn't gone red since 1972 shouldn't be this competitive. In neighboring Wisconsin, Harris's advantage with Walz is going to spill over the border somewhat. She's going to do a little better in Wisconsin than she otherwise would have. Generally, Wisconsin is the most conservative out of the 4 upper Midwestern states, but this time around, it is probably going to be Pennsylvania. Looking at polling in Wisconsin today, Kamala Harris leads in the latest poll by 4%. This poll was conducted by Marquette University. Yes, she might be leading, but Democrats have a lot to worry about here. Wisconsin polls have been notorious for overestimating Democrats. Just look at what happened back in 2020. Joe Biden was supposed to win the state by nearly 7 points. It was basically going to be a likely blue state. In the end, he won by less than 1%. He won by only 10% of the margin he was supposed to win by. Kamala Harris winning by 4% in the most recent poll and up by 1 point in the polling average means absolutely nothing. She is not in a winning position right now. But based on just the numbers alone, she is going to get this one single battleground state. Wisconsin is going to be lean blue on our map. In Michigan, Trump is actually doing much better than expected according to the only poll released since the debate, which was conducted by Insider Advantage. Donald Trump actually leads. He's ahead by 1%. This is just another example of the data getting better and better for the former president after that stellar debate performance. Michigan is going to be a tilt-red state. If Trump wins Michigan, the election is over. Kamala Harris has no chance if she can't even carry the Wolverine state. She has no pathway to the presidency. Up in New York, though, Kamala Harris is going to win. She leads by 14 points. New York is going to vote likely blue for the first time in 50 years. Down in Arizona, we also have another pretty competitive race. Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are tied according to the most recent poll, but then the next 3 polls all have Trump leading. So we're going to take the most recent of those, which is this Insider Advantage poll from late August, showing Trump leads by 1%. Arizona is going to be a tilt-red state, but again, if Donald Trump can win Michigan, and if he wins Arizona and Pennsylvania, there's no way he's not going to win the election. This puts him in a very good spot. In New Mexico, we have a single poll where Kamala Harris leads by a double-digit margin. This is probably overestimating her. This poll was also conducted relatively recently, but looking at the Hill and Emerson College's track record, they do tend to lean slightly to the left. I would expect Harris to win by just under 7 points, as she and the Democratic Party as a whole are still having issues with Hispanic voters. But on our map, New Mexico is going to be a likely blue state. Finally, in Texas, with 40 electoral votes, this is big for Republicans. They have to win this state. In 2020, there was some doubt as to whether Trump would actually be able to do that, but there is absolutely no question today. Donald Trump is going to win the Lone Star State for a 3rd time in a row. In Texas, Trump leads by 7 points in the polling average, and according to the most recent poll, this one again, conducted by Emerson College and the Hill, which does tend to lean left, Trump leads by 4 points. So, the state is going to be lean red on our map, but in the end, he's going to win by a much larger margin. An hour later, at 10 p.m., this is the final poll closing with any competitive states, and that of course includes Nevada, Montana, and Utah, all of which are easily going to go to Trump, while Iowa is likely red. But in the Silver State, we have a pretty interesting race. No Republican has won Nevada since 2004, but Trump today has the opportunity to win a state he's never won before. For the first time in the most recent Insider Advantage poll, the former president leads by 1%. I imagine after this debate performance, he'll be leading by even more. Nevada is another one of the states that really overestimated Joe Biden in the last election. Kamala Harris's 0.6% lead in the polling average is nowhere near enough. Many of these polls are coming from older sources that tend to oversample Democratic voters. Nevada is going to be a tilt-red state, which means that Trump will go 6 for 7 in the battleground states. The only one Harris is favored in right now is Wisconsin, and that's really only because it neighbors Minnesota. At 11 p.m., polls will close in the 3 Pacific states and Idaho. Obviously, Idaho is going to be solid red. We're going to fill in these states pretty quickly. California and Washington will be safe blue, while Oregon is going to be likely for the vice president. Finally, at 1 a.m. Eastern Time, the election will finally end with voting ending in Alaska and Hawaii, the 2 non-continental U.S. states. Of course, Trump will win Alaska, and Harris will win Hawaii. Based on the newest poll conducted from every single state, a lot of this data came out after that presidential debate on September 10th, Donald Trump is on track to easily win his re-election to a second non-consecutive term with 302 electoral votes to Kamala Harris's 236.